Hello and welcome to the next part of the series Verge3D for Blender Basics. In this tutorial we'll be creating user interface for our application. Since this is a web application, we'll be using web technologies, namely HTML and CSS. Basically, we want to create an HTML layout and include it in our app. This can be achieved in different ways. For example, you can open some text editor and write all this code manually. Alternatively, you can use some of web page editors to do it in a visual way. In this series, we'll be using Webflow, which is a powerful and artist-friendly web page builder. This cloud-based tool allows even a non-coder to create sophisticated layouts. Webflow team offers good documentation and plenty video tutorials. If you are a newcomer, this tool will help you understand the major foundations of web development. Let's start by creating a new project in Webflow dashboard. We'll make it without using any templates, just an empty page. Let's name it somehow. And click Create Project. So this is the tool. Let's make a quick overview of what we have here. First of all, you can see this panel on the right with element settings. Here you can style your HTML elements with CSS. Next tab allows you to set properties of HTML elements. Right now nothing is selected, so this panel is empty. Next step is the Style Manager, and finally there is a tool for creating effects. On the left there is a toolbar which can be expanded. The very first button adds new elements. The next button opens up the list of existing elements. Then comes a button for adding and removing pages, and so on. On the top you can see a few buttons with devices on them. These buttons allow you to check how your app will look on different devices and screen resolutions. So let's begin with our layout. First of all, we need to create the main element, on top of which we could further add our UI. As you may guess, this main element will be our 3D application. For our convenience, it makes sense to temporarily upload the app to Verge3D network. This way we'll be able to embed it right in Webflow, which is a cloud-based tool. So it is uploaded, and we'll be using this link soon. Go back to Webflow. Now let's add an embed element to this page. This element embeds custom HTML code. The code can be found in the section HTML-based user interfaces of the user manual. You can find the link to this page in the description below this video. We'll need to just copy this line and paste it to this text window. You see here it refers to some HTML page that will be replaced with our own link. Let's copy the link from the App Manager. This is where we just uploaded our app. And paste it here. Now click Save and Close. As you can see, our app was loaded right in the Webflow window. Now we can make it occupy the entire page. This can be done in the right panel. Set both the width and height for this element to 100%. And switch position to absolute. Also set alignment to top left and overflow to hidden. This is to prevent the scroll bar from appearing. So now we have application as part of the layout. Moreover, we can interact with the app in the preview mode. This helps a lot when creating UI, because you can see where is the model. Now let's add some UI buttons. At first glance, we should have used the button element. But it comes with many features we don't need. We'll be using the standard Div Block, which stands for HTML div tag. Let's click or drag a div block to the page. So it is positioned somehow. Now we need to style it for our needs. First of all, let's name it its CSS style, button. Now we'll make very simple buttons without icons. Set the dimensions, 80 pixels for width and height. Switch position to absolute. And set alignment to top. It is transparent and invisible now, so let's temporarily add some color, red for example. That caused our button to become quite noticeable. Let's copy it 2 times with Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V to bring the total to 3 buttons. We now want to style each of them individually, because they should have their own icon and position each. If we try to change the position now, it will change it for all 3 buttons because the style is shared. So let's add an individual style for the first button. Let's name it Unfold button with hyphen. This button will be triggering the animation for unfolding the knife's instruments. Now, being in this new style, we can assign an icon to the button. This can be done using the background setting. Click Change Image and use this dialog to upload the icon. We already have all icons prepared in the starter files in SVG format. So the first icon is loaded. Select positioning for it in the middle and set width and height to 100% each. This will make the dimensions to be defined by the width and height of the element itself. Also disable tiling. Our button is still invisible because other buttons overlap it. So we select the second button and in the settings of the main style, let's remove red color, as we no longer need it. Now all the buttons are transparent, except the first button to which we just assigned the icon. Now let's add a style for the second button. Name it Fold button with hyphen. This button will trigger the animation for folding the instruments. Again, go to background settings and assign the right icon for this button. Also make its dimension 100%, set it to be in the middle and remove tiling. The second button is ready. Now we can move it relative to the first button so that they no longer overlap. Make it 90 pixels relative to the top edge. Now comes the third button. Again, add a style to it. Name it Annotation button, since this button will enable and disable annotations for the model. Again, go with the background setting and upload the third icon just like we did with the others. Now let's move it to the bottom. We needed to shift it by 180 pixels. So we place it all three buttons. Now we want to position them on the page properly. To do this, let's add another div block to serve as container for our buttons. Let's name it style left panel. Make it 80 pixels wide. Set the height to the sum of all buttons and distances between, that is 240 pixels. Actually it should be 260 pixels, so it embodies all three buttons. Now let's put all three buttons inside this container div by dragging them in the navigator. Now we can position just the container div and our buttons will be positioned as a result. Also be sure to set absolute for its position. So now it's possible to move all these buttons together, which is very convenient. However, to position them exactly in the center, we'll need another div element. The style of which we name left panel position. Again, set it to be absolute and top left aligned. Let's make it 80 pixels wide. And set the height to 50%, meaning that it will occupy exactly half of the screen. Now place the previously created div inside this one. And make it align it to the bottom of a new div. Now its bottom edge is stuck to the middle of the screen. We know the width of this div is 260 pixels, so we can shift it down by 130 pixels. Now, whatever screen resolution will be, this left panel will always be in the middle. However, these two auxiliary divs now inflict some harm, because they lay over the 3D canvas and as such may not allow the user to interact with it in this area. To fix this, we can just set the width for both of these blocks to 0 pixels. The buttons still preserve their width. Now we have finished with the left panel. Let's make the right one. Let's just copy all these elements together with the parent div and paste them. The new panel now resides at the same place and thus invisible. Let's duplicate the style for the main div and rename it to the right panel position. And align it to the top right corner. But we still cannot see it as the panel went beyond the edge of the screen. To fix it, we need to duplicate the style for the internal div as well. Rename it as right panel. And shift it by -80 pixels to make it visible. We should modify these buttons for a new look. Let's duplicate the style for the first button and rename it as Carbon button. This button will assign the carbon material to the cover of the knife. And as we did with the left buttons, let's upload new icon for it. The new button is ready. Except that its width should be set to the default value auto, because the icon is not square. So the height will be 100% while the width is set automatically based on image proportions. Let's modify the next button, rename it to Plastic button and load the corresponding icon. Set width to auto. Again, duplicate and rename the style as Wood button. Load the final image and set its width to auto. The buttons are almost ready. The only issue is that they are positioned too close to the edges. We should move them a bit. Let's shift the right panel by 10 pixels from the right edge. And the left panel also by 10 pixels farther from the left edge. This is what we want. Finally, we should assign unique IDs to each of the buttons. We need these IDs to be able to access these elements in the Visual Scenario Editor puzzles. Let's do it. For the first button, we set the ID to Unfold button with underscore. The second button's ID will be Fold button. Next will be Annotation button. Then Carbon button, Plastic button, and finally Wood button. Everything with underscore. Now we are almost ready to export this layout and transfer it to our Verge3D application folder. However, we need to make an important thing before, otherwise it won't work with our app. Let's select our main element either in the editor or in the navigator window. Click Open Code Editor and remove the link to Verge3D network. This is because the 3D app must be embedded from the same domain as the layout HTML file. So the 3D app must be referred to using a relative path, as it is loaded from the same folder. Now save. As expected, a 404 not found error is now displayed. Now let's convert our layout to HTML CSS files. There is a special button for that, Export Code. Wait a bit until it finishes generating the files and download them as zip. Now open this archive and extract all the files right in our application folder. Go to Verge3D, Applications, Swiss Army Knife, and unzip all the contents there. Now let's return back to the App Manager and refresh the list of applications. As you can see, we got one more icon for running. We now have two HTML files. The new index.html file is what we created in Webflow. And the icon for the 3D application itself is nearby. If we run it, it won't show any UI elements because they are contained in the index.html file. We can also look at the file structure. We now got some additional folders such as CSS with styles and images with icons. And we got our index.html file. So let's run it. We can see the HTML elements we created in Webflow. And our 3D app is running in the background. At the moment, the buttons are not working since we need to add some logic blocks, which we'll do very soon. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.